There isn't a single Florida Gator that needs a bounce back year more than Jason Marshall Jr. does.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 whether you win or lose. So visit fanduel.com/locked-on to get started. And today we're talking about which Florida Gators need to have a bounce back year. And I want to put this one out there that I'm not saying the reason they played poorly was just because they played poorly. Like Austin Barber is on this list. I understand he was banged up. I do. Fact remains, he was out there and not playing well. You need to bounce back in 2024. Jason Marshall Jr. is the first name on this list, though, because nobody needs a bounce back year as bad as he does, not just for the team's success, but for his own personal future. He's done in college after this year. He's done so. He's got to go pro after this year. So if he has another year like he had last year, going to be a rough one for Jason Marshall Jr., which again, I mean, I know that his physical ability will probably get him late day 3 at worst, but yeah, going to be a rough one. And Jason Marshall, I mean, just last year, he's nothing short of a complete defensive liability because it wasn't just, oh, he was bad in coverage. He was targeted 38 times last year in coverage. He allowed 17 catches. Those aren't the bad numbers. He allowed less than 50% completion percentage when targeting him. That's not the bad number. The bad number is that he allowed 24 yards per catch. 24. That means that if you threw the ball at Jason Marshall's, whoever his assignment was, if you threw the ball there and it was caught, you were almost guaranteed a first down regardless of what the situation was, because unless you're on 2nd and 25, 3rd and 25, 30, whatever it may be, 24 yards is probably getting you a first down, right? And then even just thinking about, well, what about when you just straight up target him? It's 11 yards per catch or 11 yards per target. So even if you just target Jason Marshall Jr., odds are more often than not, or odds are that statistically just targeting him will give you a first down. Because, I mean, again, 11 yards per catch or per target. Not a lot of times Florida Gators defense had offenses in long situations like that. So it wasn't just those simple things. There's 200 yards after the catch per catch. It was an 85-yard catch allowed, which I understand. Will Shepard, the finger in the face mask against Vanderbilt. I understand that. And I understand that, sure, even if you want to take off those 85 yards, that's still what, 330 yards almost on 16 catches? Still over 20 yards per catch, even if you take away the longest catch that he allowed. And again, that play again, my issue isn't even that he gave up an 85-yard catch. My issue is that he gave up on the play. That's what I care about. I care about you gave up on the play because you wanted to cry to the officials. And just a note, that will never work for you. Not making a play because you want to cry to the officials will never work for you. Jason Marshall against Vanderbilt. Last year, there was Jets versus Chiefs. Jermaine Johnson crying for the flag instead of trying to shed the block that he probably would have gotten the flag on there. I mean, basketball works, sure, but also last year in the Super Bowl, Mecole Hardman stopped running a route because he thought he was going to get a flag. Didn't get a flag because he stopped running a route. Play through. And if there's a flag, you just have to have faith that they will either throw the flag or that you are good enough to make a play without it. So stuff like that, by the way, is going to pop up on NFL scouting reports. I can tell you that now. NFL scouts will say he gave up on the play there. He just did because he wanted to cry to the officials. You can't have that happen. Quarterbacks when targeting Jason Marshall Jr. had a passer rating of 124.1 last year. And as far as we know, he was mostly healthy, right? I think Jason Marshall Jr., long term, he might be in the nickel. I'm going to be honest with you. At the NFL level, he might be a nickel guy just because when he's rushed the passer, he's shown decent timing and decent instincts. He got up and batted a couple balls late in the year last year. He's had his moments. Okay. Like Jason Marshall Jr. has had enough moments where he keeps making people go, hey, maybe this year he turns it around. And I'm not going to get my hopes up for him this year. I'm not going to do that. I'm not an idiot always, but I'm not going to get my hopes up for that. But I will say that with his physical traits, Will Harris, I do believe Will Harris in 2024, I do believe is a better secondary coach than Corey Raymond in 2022 and 2023. So I will say that maybe Jason Marshall puts it together with better coaching. You also do have to consider that Jason Marshall has gone through four defensive back coaches now. Consistency is an issue all around the board, right? But there are some things with Jason Marshall that need to be cleaned up. And if we're looking at the spring game, he was quicker getting his head turned around. All the DBs were. I'm assuming that's a Will Harris thing. But Jason Marshall is someone that you need to be better this year because we expect the rest of this defense to take steps. Linebacker room got better. Defensive line got better. Rest of the secondary outside of like the corner room got better. I don't know if the corner room got better. I know it didn't get worse. You lost Jalen Kimber. You didn't really bring him in you didn't really bring in any immediate contributors, but you're expecting your young guys to improve and you're hoping that they do. But Jason Marshall's a big part of that because Jason Marshall is supposed to be your corner one. And if your corner one has a year like he had last year, it's going to be a really long year for the Florida Gators. Because don't forget, he was also bad defending the run. And I know that for a lot of people, that doesn't matter. Corners defending the run. It matters, okay? 16% missed tackle rate is unacceptable. That's against the run and after the catch. Things like that, they pile up. Like if you're struggling in coverage but you're making plays against the run, then at least we can go, oh, he's doing something. If you're great in coverage but you're not making plays against the run, people won't care. People go, oh, he's a corner, sure, whatever. But Jason Marshall Jr. needs a bounce back year more than anybody else on this team, just simply because there's more pressure on him to do well this year, as well as, I mean, they need him. Like the team needs him to be better, or they need the younger guys to step up and replace him. That's kind of all we've got with him as far as what he needs to do and why he needs to bounce back and how he needs to be better. He can do it. Like, don't get me wrong. And I think I've been skeptical of Jason Marshall since I started putting my opinion on these teams out there. But I mean, I still see him as someone that can be successful. It's just going to be a little bit difficult for him to clean things up, but he can still very much do it. We are about to move to the offensive side of the ball for the rest of the show really today. But first, a quick word from a couple of sponsors. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that it gets to the tip off, which I'm just saying, if you're a Magic fan, you've got maybe a game left in the series at home. You've got some time. If you're a Knicks fan like me, you got a game left in this series at home. Maybe swing by. Maybe. Never know when your team is going to get swept, Phoenix. Just saying, rough things. But with last-minute deals, you could save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Like maybe one day you're walking around and you just see an advertisement. You're like, oh, I want to go see that comic. Go see that comic on Game Time. Just saying. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and today is the best day of the week to bet on baseball because it is Dinger Tuesday. That's right. Make some money, make some bonus bets back. I'm just saying. Dinger Tuesday is my favorite day of the week. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, strikeouts, three-pointers made, all on that that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Remember that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And today, we are talking about who needs to improve the most, who needs a bounce back year on this offense now for the rest of the show, this offense. Austin Barber. And like I mentioned earlier in the episode, I understand that he was playing the huge majority of the year hurt, right? Here's the thing. At no point in the year was he good outside of maybe the South Carolina and Tennessee games. But for the huge majority of the year, he was not good. Plain and simple. I'm not trying to be rude. He wasn't good. And again, even if you want to say, oh, he got hurt before the year, whenever he got hurt, he wasn't good at any point during the year. And I'm not saying that he has to be amazing or anything like that. What I am saying is that he was on the field and he was not playing well. If that's his fault for just playing poorly, if that's the coaching staff's fault for putting him on the field when he was too banged up to justify that, whatever it may be, he was out there and he wasn't playing well. That's all I care about, right? And I want to make it very clear because I'm talking about an offensive lineman, and I don't want people to think that I'm just excluding someone for no reason. I am intentionally excluding Damian George because he's changing positions. I get it, tackle to guard. So that's why we don't have film of him playing a season at guard. So I can't say he has to be better this year than he was last year at that because it's a new spot. Same way if a corner moved to safety, or if a linebacker moved to the edge room, or a D lineman moved to the edge room or linebacker room, whatever it may be. I'm not holding that there. There's obviously evaluation that will go into it, and I'm not super optimistic about it. But I'm not putting Damian George there for that reason. But also, Damian George is playing guard now. Okay, guard is the least valuable position on the offensive line. It's not that it doesn't have value. It's the least valuable position on the offensive line. That is another reason that I chose to put Austin Barber as one of the players that needs to bounce back this year, because he will be a key deciding factor in the success of this team. Can't have any more games where he's given up pressures and sacks. Like against Arkansas last year, he gave up 5 pressures. You can't have that from your starting left tackle. Okay? You go from South Carolina to Georgia to Arkansas, and he gave up a combined 12 pressures. Not really acceptable. He did overall well against South Carolina, I will say that, but pressures, they piled up a little bit. And again, it is because the team passed the ball more and, more pass blocking opportunities, more pressure opportunities. Duh, crazy how that happens. But Austin Barber is someone that needs to step up. And I'm hoping that what we saw last year, which again, I know that a lot of people want to go, oh, he was hurt. I'm just going to chalk it as that. It's not as easy to do that for me. I can't just go, oh, he was hurt. I'm just going to chalk it. Or, oh, he was banged up. I'm sure. His film that he put out last year was horrendous. Okay? Healthy, hurt. I don't care. If that film was because you're hurt, you shouldn't have been on the field. If that's the coaching staff's fault, medical staff's fault, whoever's fault that is, doesn't matter. Austin Barber played poorly last year, and we need him to have a bounce back year as Florida Gators fans if we want to see our team thrive and find success. Okay? It's as simple as that. Again, I'm not even saying that's all his fault. I'm saying what he put on last year was horrendous, and Florida needs him to be better this year. If that's because the coaching staff or medical staff, whatever it may be, Florida needs him to be better this year. And again, I want to say that maybe one of the reasons he struggled so much last year was because he was playing left tackle full time. Where when he was A true freshman, like his when he redshirted, didn't play. Just didn't. He played like 5 snaps or something like that. And then 2022 came around and he rotated at both tackle spots, but he played the overwhelming majority of his snaps at right tackle. And then now went to left tackle for the 2023 season and had a much rougher go of things. And it's also important to like acknowledge that good pass rushers on that side. Like you see good pass rushers all around now. You see good pass rushers on the left side. A lot of things go into it, but the fact remains that he played poorly, and that's unacceptable for a Florida Gators team that can't afford that this year, simply put. And so that's why I'm also putting him over anybody else because offensive line, you playing tackle in an offense that needs good tackle play here. You've got your tackles, your center are the most important spots on the offensive line. You need to have that success there. And so, Austin Barber, you can't be a liability as a tackle. Otherwise, you're going to be punting a lot this year. So for me, that's kind of where I'm landing on Austin Barber. Just Florida needs him to be better. I do think he will be better, by the way. I'm not like completely out on him at all. Last year was just really bad, and he needs to be better for the Florida Gators in 2024. We are about to stay on the offensive side of the ball, but first we are going to get, indeed, a quick word from Monopoly Go. All right, all right. Game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game, right? In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers to trade to complete albums for big prizes. You're saying? Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, which is one of my favorite things about the game. Hilarious emojis to taunt your friends, because I just like to get a little emoji that I know one of my friends likes, and I just spam them with it. It's what I do. I like to talk trash. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, right? And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies, right? There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And the last player to talk about is a player that I think Florida Gators fans will agree with me here on this one. Monch Johnson. And I understand you look at the just you look at him in a vacuum, and there's nothing to really complain about, right? You look at what Montrell Johnson did in the vacuum. I'm going to pull up his numbers compared to Trevor Etienne, which I know is like the boogeyman right now to talk about. But you look at what Montrell Johnson did compared to Trevor Etienne, and Montrell was about half a yard less efficient per carry. Adds up when you get 152 carries, right? So getting that half a yard per carry, big difference there. But also where Montrell, it's more so that Montrell fell off from what he used to do. Because when you look at Montrell at Louisiana in 2021, when you look at Montrell as a sophomore at Florida in 2022, when you look at Montrell last year, he was doing more of making men miss and running through tackles on a just per snap basis. He was doing more. And then it felt kind of like, 2023, he was looking more for just can I create a big play? Can I cut back here? And also, like, part of that could just be having no confidence in this offensive line. Because I think every Florida Gators fan will agree that the Florida Gators offensive line in 2023 was terrible, pitiful, disgusting, upsetting to watch, right? And with Montrell, you take away Vanderbilt and McNeese, and we're talking about a very different season. He averaged 8 yards per carry against McNeese. He averaged 7.5 against Vanderbilt. But you look at Arkansas, 2.9. You look at Tennessee, 2. Utah, 2. Charlotte, 4. Kentucky, 4.2. South Carolina, 4.5. Georgia, he had a good game, but he barely ran the ball there. He had 9 carries. Like you see what I mean here, where I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm saying he was wildly inconsistent last year, and most of his production came against bad teams. That's one of the reasons that makes me think that, hey, this offensive line really held him back, because the games where he did well, there he did better, were games where the offensive line did better. But my point exactly is that he was creating so much less after contact. He was creating so much less as a ball carrier last year. That's where my bigger concern comes in. Is just I remember talking about this, I think it was like the Tennessee game where we talked about it for the first time, where I was just like, Montrell Johnson doesn't look like Montrell Johnson. Like, he's bouncing runs out wide, which, like, he kinda did a little bit beforehand. He just did it better and less frequently. But he's bouncing runs out wide, getting one-on-ones with corners, and getting tackled by the corners. Where 2022 and 2021 Montrell, we saw him consistently break tackles against linebackers. That was a common thing, and then you look at what he did in 2023, and he was struggling against corners. So that's one of the reasons that I'm like, okay, he wasn't fully healthy, which I get. But again, similar to the Austin Barber situation, if you're just not healthy to the point where it's hurting your play considerably, you shouldn't be playing. Just get healthy and get on the field. Or do we have to blame the coaching staff for something else? I'm just curious there, because again, regardless of the reasoning, he needs a bounce back year this year. It's also important to remember that I think that Montrell Johnson is going to have significantly more carries this year. And I understand that Florida has Trayon Webb. I understand that Florida has Jaden Baugh, KD Daniels. I get that. I still think Montrell Johnson is going to see 170, 180 carries this year. Because I do think that Florida and Billy Napier, they're going to trust him to take on more of the workload. This is his 4th year with Billy Napier. I could easily see him going, hey, like, we're going to feed you the rock a little bit while we ease in the younger guys to get a better feel for the college game. Because no matter how good they looked in the spring game, it's very different to do that in a live game week after week after week against different opponents, against other teams' starting opponents, starting defensive players, right? So I do think that Montrell, especially early in the season, is going to get the bulk of the carries, where, you go, hey, Miami game, like, feed Montrell, let him go. We can't afford to screw up, because Montrell, he takes care of the football relatively well. I'm gonna knock on wood, because relatively well, I think he's got 2 fumbles in his entire career. And I don't think he's fumbled since his first carry with the Gators, if I'm not mistaken, first game with the Gators. So we got to see that. But also, like, I want to see Montrell that breaks tackles more consistently. And then we also have to talk about in the passing game. I'm not sure if Montrell Johnson is going to play as significant a role in the passing game this year, because I do think you have better pass catchers out of the backfield. We'll see what they are when they're in pass protection, and how they keep Graham Mertz alive, because we know that Trayon Webb last year, in his very limited pass blocking opportunities, was not good. I think he had like 3 or 4, but wasn't good in those reps. Trevor Etienne was the worst I've ever seen. He gave up a sack against Charlotte. That shouldn't happen. And Montrell Johnson wasn't good, improved, but still wasn't good. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well, if you have Jaden Ball, who's going to be a better pass catcher than Montrell, but Jaden Ball can't pass protect, is he really going to play that much on passing downs? I think ideally Montrell doesn't contribute as much as a pass catcher, but is more efficient as a pass catcher, because he also, don't forget, had, I think, the most drops on the team. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, he had 4 drops, which is the most on the team, despite having the 3rd most targets last year. So this is something where you have to be more efficient there. But I also am not sure if he's going to be the guy that they want to throw the ball to. Either way, though, as a pure runner, I think they're going to give him the ball more this year than last year. And that's why you need him to step up, because this team, they need you to be able to consistently churn out first downs and consistent yardage. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I will see you all next time.